Well, good morning, everybody. We'll hang on here for just a minute and wait for some participants to get out of the waiting room and into the webinar space, and then we will get started.
Yep, good morning, good afternoon. This is Adam Chaikin from Opal Creek. Happy to be with you today, talking about Sage Intacct and NetSuite, compare and contrast. I had the good fortune of meeting Tom over 25 years ago at some AI-CPA conferences. Back then they had different names. They've consolidated them now into Engage and things of that sort. Tom and I were champions for the CITP credential for the AICPA, the Certified Information Technology Professionals.
Yeah, we
So
got in on the ground floor there.
we did. And fortunate for us, because, I don't know if I could pass that exam now.
Yeah.
A lot like the CPA exam, I guess, right?
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. So this is Mastering Financial Solutions, and we are going to be talking about Sage Intacct and NetSuite here. And hopefully this will be the beginning of a series. As Adam said, we have collaborated for many years, and we're excited to put this together for you today. So I'm going to go on to our intro slide here. I am the practice director for the Sage Intacct here at Sensiba. I've been working with Sage Intacct for about 11 years. So I come over from working with PeopleSoft for several years before that. That was my primary software that I worked with, but wasn't the only one. And I worked across a lot of different industries and packages and helped clients evaluate whether they had the right system and if they were using it to the best of its capabilities. And I've been with Sensiba for 3 years. I had my own firm prior to that, and having a good time here and looking forward to sharing some information with you today.
Awesome. Adam Chaikin here. I'm a partner at Opal Creek. I met Tom during his PeopleSoft rehab years. I was happy to be his person, his shoulder to lean on. I am a CPA by trade. I also had my own company back in the early 2000s, but I am part of an exceptional partnership now with some amazing people across the country. My background has always been where finance and technology meet, and that's typically in the ERP space. I started my career with large multinational Oracle Business Suite implementations for British Telecom, and then moved confidently into the NetSuite space, having seen just how it masters so many things in the mid-market space. I'm based in Potomac, Maryland. I'm on the sunny side of the country. Tom's up in Portland with the fog and the mist and the haze, and it's only nice.
It is actually a little gray here today.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Shocking. Well, let me give you a little bit of background on our company. So if you're not familiar with Sensiba, we are at our history as CPA firm, and we still have all of the CPA firm services, as you would expect, tax and audit and risk assurance. And I work in the consulting area. I've done tax, I've done audit, and I'm happy to be in the consulting space and helping customers maximize their investments in technology. We also have I'm really proud of this, that we're a certified B Corp, and we have a very strong, robust sustainability consulting practice within Sensiba. And that includes helping other firms attain the B Corp certification that we've got, but also these other things that you see on the lower right: Impact IQ, ESG assessments, climate neutral certifications. So that's something that continues to grow, and we expect to see more growth in that area too. We've got 6 offices along the West Coast, and mostly in California, but a couple in Oregon here, which is where I'm based. In the consulting practice, I'm focused along with our partners on software services, and you can see we not only do implementations, but we also do help with upgrades. We help with the overall assessments of a company's tech stack and how that fits with requirements, processes, and most importantly, the people. So there's a few of the badges of the products we work with, and we're talking about Sage Intacct today primarily, so I won't waste any more time on this. Let's get on to Adam's company.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, Tom, you mentioned, the people and the people, process, and technology. And I think that's one of the things I love partnering with you about is, just knowing that these systems implementations are really need to be tailored towards the individuals that will use the software in the future. And we both take that approach that at the end of the day, we have to take care of the people. They'll take care of the business. Opal Creek is a nationwide consulting firm. Our professionals work virtually, which works out great for everybody. We are international. We have professionals in Canada and in South America as well. You can see there that we focus on the NetSuite ecosystem. We have specialists and certifications with Avalara, some other software there. Celigo has historically been our iPaaS solution of choice. It's a tool that we've deployed numerous times and have had some really happy people there. I will ask you to just make note of our work in Carbon Suite. For those of you that have GHG reporting requirements or see them coming down the road, we'd love to have a discussion with you. Carbon Suite is a bolt-on application that supports greenhouse gas reporting, something that we're really proud of. Opal Creek as a consulting organization is a full suite, a full service NetSuite shop. I'm very proud of a few aspects of our business. One is that we specialize in project rescue. Project rescue is, the real life aspect of ERP projects where sometimes, there's a big space between what a professional services firm delivered and what you actually expected. Project Rescue is geared towards helping try to bridge that gap, keeping a client with their implementation partner together and trying to find a good through lane for them to a safer place. We've been brought into numerous project rescues. We pride ourselves in having no sharp elbows, and we are very mission oriented. The other thing that I'm really proud of is that a lot of our implementation clients and many others turn to Opal Creek for Slack channel support. So one of the things we're really proud of is that you can turn to us by establishing a connection with our professionals through Slack, and we can provide online real-time guidance, get people unstuck if they're in the NetSuite application. So thank you for that.
Cool. Adam, real quick on Celigo, you mentioned iPaaS. Do you want to define that for folks who don't know?
Sure. So iPaaS solutions are sort of newer technology. It's an integration platform as a service. So in the old days, especially when we were starting our careers, integrations were these bulky, kind of hefty, clumsy, point-to-point solutions that required, a lot of development and a lot of program to get information from a source system to a destination. And these lighter weight and these professional tools now are very, very strong enablers to act as a communication mechanism between cloud-based systems. They're fairly straightforward to use. They have numerous applications, and they're currently structured at a price point where they make compelling use cases for people that previously thought they couldn't afford to stitch 2 or 3 applications together and share information, and now it's much more attainable. So we love Celigo. We're Celigo partners as well.
Thanks. Yeah, you might have clued in. Adam and I both worked in those enterprise level applications, PeopleSoft, Oracle Business Suite, and we intentionally moved to more approachable, more affordable solutions in Intacct and NetSuite. So we're kind of bringing that enterprise experience to the middle market. That's been our game plan individually and collaboratively. So our agenda today, we've got through the introductions. We're going to talk about, for some context, understanding what the CFO's perspective is, the needs and wants that CFOs have in coming into this purchase decision. We'll do a overview of Sage Intacct, then an overview of NetSuite. We'll talk about the relative system strengths and ideal markets, ideal industries for these two different solutions. We'll walk through a use case, and then we will talk a bit about working with a partner like Sensiba or Opal Creek, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. And if you do have questions, as Shannon said in the chat there, you can go through the Q&A button, and she will be monitoring our questions and making sure that we get answers to you. So next up, we're going to have a polling question. That's popped up there. What is your time frame for replacing an ERP system? If you just put your answer in there, we'll get a little profile of where everybody is in that journey today.
Yeah. Replacing an ERP system is, is a fairly intensive effort. When planned and scheduled and resourced appropriately, they can typically be done, sort of quickly and effectively. One of the things that Tom and I have done in our career is working with really high performance teams. So finding the select individuals that have business process excellence as part of their background. So really being able to work closely with people that excel at procure to pay, order to cash, things of that nature.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Looks like most of our attendees are looking at more than a year out. Well, that is really great, actually, because doing this kind of research and having a idea of what your flight plan is going to be is excellent. So thank you for coming today and doing your early research.
Agreed. One of the greatest things to have on your side when doing analysis and selecting between ERP packages is time. Starting early is a huge benefit to you, lowers the temperature in the room, and really makes things a little bit more enjoyable.
So when we're talking about the CFO's perspective, there's of course concerns and there's priorities. And one of the things that we as independent consultants help do is help our CFOs figure out how they're spending their money and how they're spending their time. So these are two constraints that we acknowledge and work with in our projects with any ERP. And Adam and I both work with the software companies, but not for the software companies. So we get in there and we might be able to tell you what you need and also what you don't need so that you can hold on to your money until it's actually required to spend that. As far as the time goes, we're very transparent. We like to clarify how much time we project we're going to use and how much we expect from those subject matter experts on the client side team. And of course, some teams have no prior experience with ERP implementations, and some have been through many, and they're still here. So that's amazing. Because ERP implementations, we're not going to pretend that they're easy. It's just a glide path to victory. There is a sort of a hero's journey that we all have to go through. And that change management piece, we talked about the people, that's a very important part of that. So we adapt. I know Adam is great at this, adapting to the meeting people, meeting the teams and the CFOs where they are, and making sure that we get that gap filled in. Of course, if you're buying one of these systems, you are looking at something you can grow into. Maybe you're buying it before you actually need it. Actually, that's what we would recommend. Not too long before, but you want to be able to grow into it and for it to be sustainable as your volume of transactions and enterprises grows.
Indeed, indeed. Tom, I think you said those beautifully. I like the idea of the power of no, and working as an advocate for a client and really sussing out, what are the things they need for go live. Often you'll hear us talk about MVP, the minimum viable product. What can we do first to get you live? There's such a reckoning that happens after clients are live. How often we've worked on projects where going into our launch, they have an idea as to what they want to do for phase two. And then lo and behold, priorities change once they've used the software. It's often said the most dangerous place in the room is the space that exists between NetSuite direct sales and somebody with a checkbook. We like to work as advocates. We love the software, but we do want to make sure they don't get oversold. Rarely have we ever walked into a C-suite, and this would be CFOs, controllers, assistant controllers, VPs of finance, and they're just kind of loitering around with a yellow pad and not much to do. ERP implementations happen against a backdrop of total mayhem. People are working exceptionally hard to make the results, whether you're public or private. You have a mission. And that mission often does not include setting aside scores and scores of hours each week to implement an ERP system. What we like to do is establish a relationship early. Working with a trusted team is actually pivotal. You need to know and understand that as professionals, we're going to take on your worry, right? The biggest fear and concern with a very, very high incidence of ERP implementation failures is, how do we prevent this from failing on my watch, right? I've heard all the horror stories. I know people in my network, my personal network, my professional groups, and they lament over having spent time and money and effort and not quite getting what they're looking for. Well, the methodologies that Tom and I employ are the antithesis of that. We spend a lot of time on the front end of a project, really making sure we know and understand the business, we know and understand the contributors, and we know and understand the desired outcome. I'll conclude on this slide by saying, training, is not a sometime kind of thing. It's an all the time kind of thing. And properly enabled employees that know and understand how to use a software can become really strong enablers in your business. Both of our products have a very vibrant ecosystem. They decided long ago not to try to be all things to all people. A vibrant ecosystem means that you have access to both professionals and software that can extend your platform and can tailor make that platform to your business. You have a warehouse, you want to deploy some smart warehousing capabilities, want to deploy scanners, want to use RFID. Each of our platforms gives you the capability to look deeply into the portfolio of products that are available to extend that system to be tailor-made to your needs. We know, having worked with the C-suite for as long as we have, even occupying the C-suite in some cases, I've done my tours of duty as assistant controller and CFO before myself earlier in my career. Financial management solutions are there to enable, essentially to be the lighthouse in the storm, right? You need to be able to trust that the information that your ERP platform is giving you is allows you to put your hand on the rudder of the ship and steer it. These systems that we are both referring to, both Sage and NetSuite, have amazing opportunities to provide real-time dashboard level information for people to literally feel the pulse of their organizations. In turn, C-suite executives often refer to the business case or understanding what sort of payback period can I anticipate in getting from my ERP platform. And that's critical. Very often we're brought in early enough to help a CFO or other finance professional shape that vision, shape that decision-making. Can the technology that I deploy avoid having to hire more people in the future as my business grows? Yes. can I leverage automation that exists within that system to obviate the need for various individuals in the business today so that they could be redeployed to do higher value things? Yes. If you're one of those people that are evaluating an ERP system in the future and you're just not quite sure how to get the approval, contact us, work with us. Even if you're not interested in using the software that we both specialize in, we could help you shape a vision and help you understand where the technology will help you build productivity gains. That's part of the business that we love.
Thanks, Adam. That's teeing that up to talk about what are the challenges, what's getting in the way of uh, meeting those goals. And of course, we've seen all kinds of challenges. So I'll talk about some of the most common things that we see. Of course, we've talked a few times now about a shortage of time, and that's translated into also a shortage of people over the last few years, particularly. I think a couple of tax acts there caused a lot of CPAs to just throw in the towel, leaving space open for other people. And there's a lot of talent shortages in the accounting business, whether you're in for-profit, not-for-profit, and that means that a lack of automation and a lack of standardization is a common challenge, and that means people are working too many hours. The lack of coherent and cohesive reporting out of a bunch of different systems almost always manifests in a ton of spreadsheets. I did a project earlier this year where the controller referred to just spreadsheet hell. That's where he was. And
Yeah.
you know, we hear that a lot because Excel is a beautiful tool for quickly wrangling a lot of data, but it's not an ERP. A lot of companies find that that's what they're relying on as their ERP if they're stitching together, say, numerous QuickBooks instances because they have a lot of entities and they don't have a consolidated financial system.
Yeah.
We also
And
see,
what's that metric, Tom, of we learned this at one of our CPA conventions about what is the real percentage of Excel spreadsheets that are critical to financial reporting that ultimately have material errors in them. It's very high. It's
yeah,
over 80%. So
yeah, it was somewhere in the 80s, I think.
yeah. So definitely highly motivated to get out of Excel and to use a real business application like the tools that we're working with.
Right. And you know, also feeding into that are shortages of automation. So approval processes. We work with companies who do their approval processes through. We talked to a company that do all their approvals with Adobe Connect, or rather Adobe PDFs. We have companies who use DocuSign for approval processes. We worked with a company that used, well, you get the picture, workarounds to make approvals happen, whether that's through email or something else that isn't a contained structured system, is not sustainable and it's not scalable. And that is something, especially with companies and nonprofits that are growing, struggle with. And if you can't get that, source information processed on a timely basis and into your ERP, then all of that reporting, all of the financial decision making that needs to happen is also delayed. And you're not working then with real-time data, and you're working with stressed out, overworked people instead. So our whole mission is to get over that hurdle and get on to a system that actually provides results that are useful at the time that you see them. So I'm going to go first with the overviews. For Sage Intacct, and the thing is, you're going to hear a lot of the same points on these two systems because Intacct and NetLedger, as it was called then, these two independent companies were started almost the same time. I think Intacct, before Sage was involved, Intacct got its first round of funding the same time that the dot-com collapse happened, like the day of. So they've been around a while. They've survived some things.
You still had gray hair then, so.
So we're talking about a multi-tenant cloud architecture, and that's really important because there's a lot of legacy software that has been ported to a cloud interface, but it is not truly multi-tenant cloud. That is, it's still separate files, separate tables from the rest of the system, which means that upgrades, for instance, take a lot more effort and time, but also that all of the infrastructure that's needed to support that needs to be replicated over and over again, and it's not efficient. So because these two systems were built to be served multi-tenant through a cloud architecture, they have never had to deal with file constraints. They have been endlessly expandable. So we'll talk a little bit about that more too with NetSuite. With Sage Intacct, it was built with a multi-dimensional data design that is, besides having, of course, GL accounts and departments, it has 7 standard dimensions that you can add on to any transaction, including customers, locations, vendors, items. Those all are just a part of the accounting within Intacct, and therefore they feed those robust reporting and dashboard tools very nicely. Intacct has, for the last 4 quarters, 100% user satisfaction in the mid-market on g2.com if you use G2 as a decision point in your software selections, which I do. It is recommended by the AI CPA, which Adam doesn't think that's fair, but Intacct was originally actually built as a CPA's tool to use for write-up of outsourced accounting clients, and it grew from there, which is how it got embedded in the AI CPA's ecosystem. Intacct also has, in these days, it's of course way beyond that. It's a full enterprise system. It has a lot of embedded AI. In fact, I just watched a early adopter enablement on PO, automated AI-enabled PO matching, which is pretty cool. You drop an invoice in, and it finds the POs that are open for that invoice and line items and matches. Still an early adopter, meaning basically they're training the machine learning to do it better. We've got, of course, it comes with core financials, all of the necessary modules for any business, but then there's advanced modules for extended functionality in verticals like software, SaaS software, particularly nonprofits, professional services. And Sage Intacct has extended itself a lot by using a best of breed approach. Like, we're really good, this is them talking, we're really good at core financial stuff and some of these other applications that are tightly tied to it, but there are literally hundreds of partners that they have vetted that are in their marketplace app, and some that they white label. For instance, ADP Workforce Now is also marketed as Sage Intacct Payroll powered by ADP. So there's some white label things like that, but the idea is that other vendors are able to produce specialized applications that work with Sage Intacct.
If this were the Academy Awards, you'd be hearing the music for a little while now.
All right, I get it. An ideal fit for Intacct would be companies with more than 20 employees. We say 20 to 500, but it could be more than that because there are publicly traded companies using Sage Intacct, and they have more than 500 employees. And $4 million gross revenue is the bottom end of the what I would say is the low end, unless you're a funded pre-revenue company. You don't have that, but you know you're going that direction. So that's ideal there. The industries that it is particularly strong in, nonprofits I've mentioned a few times, and foundations. Professional services that has a lot of built-in and add-on capabilities for professional services and time billing and expenses. I talked about software as a service. It has great contracts management and revenue recognition. And just in the last few years, and we don't work with this at Sensiba, but the construction and real estate product, which Sage has dominated in that industry with their legacy products, they have been bringing that functionality into the Intacct world. So there's a lot of construction and real estate capabilities in Sage Intacct now. It's multi-entity, multi-currency. It does great with global consolidations. So if you need to see a global multi-currency operation consolidated into US dollars, you can do that. You can consolidate into British pounds on a different consolidation book if you need to. There's industry-specific apps, as I said, and of course, with an open API, you can integrate whatever else you might need. And it also has a deep and long-lasting connection with Salesforce. It is a Salesforce Platinum partner. There's multiple levels of integration within that are supported by Sage.
Super.
Adam, you're up.
Well, thank you for that, Tom. I'll try to squeeze my presentation into the next 90 seconds. Seriously, we are often contacted to compare and contrast NetSuite and Sage Intacct. It is really the two preeminent pieces of software in the middle market space, and there are clearly similarities between them, and there are clearly differences. And we like to be able to call those out. Similar to Sage, NetSuite is cloud, pure cloud. It has that shared tenancy capability. And for those of you that sort of may not be as technical, this is not a hosted instance of yours that's somewhere in a data center managed by the firm. And the benefit of that, exactly like Tom said, is that the upgrade path is clear. You're limited to making certain configurations, even some pretty specific configurations, but you can't customize the software like you could in the days of old. And it's very rare that you could jeopardize your upgrade path. NetSuite has a fairly substantial install base around the world. There's 37,000 customers and growing. And it is truly an all-in-one suite. While NetSuite can give you solutions in finance, CRM, payroll, the other ones that are there, I will be transparent in saying they're not the best at everything. So if you expect that NetSuite CRM package is going to go head-to-head with Salesforce, you're going to be disappointed. It can handle payroll. It does handle payroll quite elegantly, but it's not a solution like ADP Workforce now. So you can have this as a one-stop shop, but there are many people that decide that the modular approach is better. One of the things that I love about working in NetSuite, as I said before, is that they're not all things to all people. They want to create a core series of applications that can be extended. There is an enormous, robust, and continuously growing ecosystem of partners and affiliates that support NetSuite, developed specifically for NetSuite. And the installation of their software can be installed as a bundle directly into your instance. And it's really peaceful. As Tom indicated before, I started my career in the Oracle E-Business Suite, and I did not walk towards NetSuite because of the way that these integrations work so nicely. Some of the highlights for NetSuite, they handle very complex revenue recognition rules. They're very up to date on lease accounting, and we love the multi-currency, multi-org, multinational consolidation capability. So if you have operations in the US, in Canada, across Europe, you could easily and effectively manage not only those individual ledgers, but the intercompany aspects, transfer pricing, things of that nature. NetSuite does have a broad industry reach. We'll speak a little bit more about that. And in a little bit over 2 weeks, I'm headed out to the Suite World Conference in Las Vegas. This is an annual get-together of thousands of people. And it is pretty amazing to have that type of support network. Seeing fellow users, seeing fellow implementation consultants, and being able to collaborate with people and see how they're addressing some of the cutting edge challenges that exist in business today.
Yeah, there's nothing like those conferences to really hear what
What
customers
people are
are.
saying.
Yeah,
You'll see some similarity here, but I will call out some differences here. Company size, you can have fewer than 50 and more than 500, but that's kind of like the sweet spot for NetSuite. Um, from a sales perspective, 10 million to 750 million. There's kind of some tribal kind of information that's kind of permeating the market that when a business gets really, really big for NetSuite, Oracle kind of comes on pretty heavy for you and wants to encourage you to move directly into the Oracle e-business suite. I can't say that I've ever interacted with anybody that had that type of pressure. There's no limit on the industries, but business services, manufacturing. I love the NetSuite application for manufacturing and warehousing, high tech, retail, wholesale, and e-commerce. When you see things like e-commerce, the ease and flexibility that you have with being able to connect to things like Shopify, other e-commerce solutions. If you're using a 3PL for fulfillments, you can use tools like TrueCommerce, and really be able to connect your system to those others within your professional organization that are supporting your productivity. I love the multinational multi-book capability. This gives you a dual reporting for any subsidiary that it's active in. And this would allow you, for example, to be able to do reporting in a base currency of euro, but also be able to review your financial results in a secondary book. That secondary book could be US dollars or otherwise. The great thing about multi-book, it's not sort of like the headline, but the differences in GAAP that exist around the world are easily accommodated in multi-book. So if you find yourself growing into Latin America, or you find yourself growing into Europe, specifically within Germany, and you know that there's some pretty material differences between Brazilian GAAP or German GAAP, that's easily handled within a multi-book environment. Subscription billing is also handled. I put some notes there about some things to consider if you have e-commerce capability, 3PL, if you want to deploy smart warehousing capability. These are all things that exist within that NetSuite ecosystem and are all reasonably priced and achievable. NetSuite easily handles things like drop ship, complex supply chain integrations, as well as freight. Thank you.
yeah, thanks. I want to, just reiterate this, that in manufacturing and in some of that advanced inventory, that NetSuite is where I would steer a customer. So if somebody came to me and said, we want Sage Intacct for a large inventory operation, and that's our main thing, is we're manufacturing, we're warehousing, we're shipping, I would call Adam. So that's a distinction right there.
Yeah. And similarly, to compare and contrast, I think one of the things that is noticeably absent from my presentation is I don't really push NetSuite on not-for-profits. I really like the way Sage elegantly handles the not-for-profit space, and also family office. Tom and I collaborated on a family office project, and it became clear that the unique requirements that has was really tailored towards Sage Intacct.
Yeah, thanks. So we'll go through this one. You're going to see, and you've already heard, that there's more similarities probably than differences in these applications, which is why maybe that's why you attended this webinar, but it's also why we are often comparing those deals or those software in the same deals. Sage Intacct, the one of the original developers of Sage Intacct is now the CTO of Sage Global. So he's still around, and he always says that they built this so that you could do anything in the API that you can do in the user interface. And actually, in some cases, you can do things with the API you can't do in the user interface. So that's sort of been the hub of that best of breed paradigm. We're not going to be all things to all people, and Adam alluded to that in NetSuite as well. But that's sort of, it never was intended to be a full suite, but to partner with those companies who are producing great software for specialized applications. As I said, it's got very flexible management of lots of entities and consolidation books. And that is one reason that family offices love them, because family office often involves many entities. We have something called quick start templates, which help us. We use those a lot to get a company off the ground quickly with built-in hierarchies of accounts and pre-built financial reports. And Adam will talk about Suite Success, I think, but Sage Intacct just rolled out something similar called Trusted Practice Solutions, which we like because if you run the reports out of that, you get TPS reports. There's what's called chatter in Salesforce is also included in Sage Intacct under the name Intacct Collaborate, which we use extensively, especially in our outsource accounting practice. And the upgrades happen every quarter. Everybody's on the same version all the time, and we get a thorough documentation of what changes are coming weeks before the upgrades happen. And as Adam said, in these multi-tenant architectures, upgrades almost never break integrations or configurations because those integrations and configurations are done in a application layer that is outside of the core code. I've said all that I understand about that right there. So I also love the Intacct community. It's a place where resellers and partners like us, customers, Sage employees are all interacting, answering questions, sharing information. So we use that a lot ourselves. Adam, tell us about NetSuite.
Sure, I'd love to. You know, in the spirit of different but the same, NetSuite, as I mentioned before, does have a very robust ecosystem. At Suite World and elsewhere, you can walk the expo floor and see literally hundreds of vendors that have come out and have tried to provide unique, specific solutions to various challenges to industry. While NetSuite has taken issues like revenue recognition head on, lease accounting head on, if your organization has a level of uniqueness to it, there's a very, very high chance that there is a player in the ecosystem that is extending the NetSuite platform to do that. I spoke briefly about the ease and convenience of extending the platform. Very often that comes in the form of a suite bundle. That's really just kind of like, you know, download and install. All happens within your instance. And, you know, NetSuite is really good at provisioning you a sandbox environment for you to be able to, you know, analyze, design, test before you release. NetSuite has a biannual upgrade cycle. We refer to them as the .1 and the .2 releases. Many of our clients are just going through that .2 upgrade right now. We have a member of our team that's an absolute star, and she goes through and she sends individualized special emails to our clients about things that they should be thinking about with regard to the new .2 release or the .1, whatever it may be. And she's just pretty wonderful at being able to tailor make those client-specific communications. We did mention Celigo. There are other iPaaS solutions that work elegantly and easily with NetSuite. We're a big fan of Celigo. They have some pretty cool tools that they've developed, both in the BI space as well as a specific use case associated with NetSuite is that they kind of charge an arm and a leg for storage space. So they have a really great tool that allows you to use your existing OneDrive, your existing Google space, anywhere that you have file space, OneDrive, SharePoint, you can use that to store documents. And it's you know, super helpful to use. NetSuite has a global presence. We have a global presence. You know, if you have growing operations across Europe, Middle East, Africa, You're going to have a wealth of professionals that will be able to help you do that with industry experience. And you may have a physical presence in those countries that you're looking at, which is great. Quickly, I'll say that NetSuite has started sharing Learning Pass, which is a tremendous portfolio of learning at your fingertips. We recognize today more than ever, post-COVID, just people have different modalities of working, right? And as Tom said, one of the things that Opal Creek prides itself about is being able to meet our customers in the channel or the space that they're in. Learning Pass gives people the opportunity to learn at their own speed. Of course, as a full service firm, both Sensiba and Opal Creek do user-led training, instructor training. I'm a big fan of Suite Answers. Most of the complex things that I've learned through the Suite Answers capability. That is a context-specific help that you can invoke from the page that you're working on. And I'll stop there. Sandbox environment, super helpful for organizations that have technology departments that want to kind of try and fail and test and release using a sandbox type of environment.
Yeah, sandboxes are, I love having those. I love it when a client has added a sandbox environment because not just for technology, but also for trying out a different way of organizing your company, trying out different dimension structure, or trying to bring in a subsidiary or another entity in and seeing how that works with what you've got. So not just for technology, sandboxes are super handy for testing out your whatever your strategy is going to be without affecting production. So I have a use case that that Adam and I both worked on, and this was a solar investment company. So what they do is they build large-scale commercial solar installations. And in order to build each of those installations, they have a unique funding where they sell shares in that to investors, and the investors then get tax credit benefit from it. So each of those projects, therefore, is a standalone company with its own tax credits and its own ownership. But at each phase of that project, when it's getting funding, when it's being constructed, and when it rolls either into operation or gets sold to a different operator, that entity needs to move through different roll-ups to different holding companies. So this was something that was a challenge, would have been a challenge for NetSuite because it's not that easy in that circumstance to change your consolidation structure. But with Sage Intacct, we figured out that we could change those rollups over time by either, in some cases, we could rerun a consolidation with new entities within it. But in order to report side by side, we can also create a book. I mean, every consolidation, the eliminating entries and all of the consolidated transactions go into a separate book. And there's no limit on how many of those books you create. So we could then create a sort of a Kanban of where that entity has moved and show the roll-ups for a consolidation that is the funding companies, the holding company, the operation company, and show those different books, those consolidated financials side by side. And in addition to that, it just has a lot of ease of use in inter-entity balancing so that when we create journals or bills that get spread across multiple entities, that the offsetting debits and credits are generated automatically and then automatically eliminated through those consolidation rollups. So that was something that, yeah, go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to say this was a client that came to us a little bit with a sense of urgency. They were on what we referred to as a burning platform. They had many QuickBooks files that they were trying to work on. And we did a relatively quick software package selection for them And one of the things that made it very hard to point in the direction of NetSuite was the way that these consolidations were to evolve over time. Legally, those entities were changing hands legally over the funding phases and the installation phases. And we found that the Sage solution on that was really very capable. It's not to say that you couldn't change your legal entity hierarchy or change your reporting process. The easiest way to do that in NetSuite is to do it outside of the NetSuite consolidation. But to buy separate consolidation software is additional expense. And while there are things that NetSuite is great at, it does have somewhat of a rigid hierarchy. Um, I'll just conclude this by saying, NetSuite does not handle minority interest well either. There's a broad assumption that in NetSuite, you have 100% ownership of all your subsidiaries. So if you are in a situation where you have minority interest or so on with your subsidiaries, it's something that's worth exploring or considering in detail before you hew in the direction of NetSuite.
That's a good point, Adam. And I know we're running low on time here, but I just wanted to throw out there that Intacct had the same 100% ownership limitations until only recently they came out with advanced ownership consolidations, or AOC. And so that's been just rolling out. Most of our customers don't need something like that, but it's good to know that we have that in our pocket for these more complex organizations. All right, we have another polling question. And it should pop up here in a second. Are you interested in meeting with us? If you've, this is a choose all that apply. Although if you choose all the yeses and also not at this time, we're going to be confused. But
Yeah.
it will help us to follow up with you if you want to know more specifics about these applications than what we were able to address in this particular webinar.
Yeah. And this is a kind of stealth sort of referendum on who has a nicer beard. So if you don't really need an evaluation, but you just want to select like, hey, who's the handsomer guy or who's got the nicer beard, you can certainly do that as well.
Well, then I'd have to vote for you because that's a great beard.
Good man. Good man.
All right, we're going to move on to our next piece here, and we won't spend a lot of time here because we don't have a lot of time.
Yep. So working with a partner, we think is critical. You could probably tell by the kind of easygoing and affable manner that Tom and I have that we really put our emphasis on what the client's looking for. We take the time up front to evaluate what the specific needs are of the organization. And while it still continues to sound very cliche, we realize that these projects are really the touch points between the individuals that use them, the processes they need to follow, and the technology. So I think one of the true advantages of working with an Opal Creek or working with a Sensiba is that the people that you bring to the table have extensive industry expertise. So unlike certain firms, you're not working with somebody that's sort of fresh out of school that may not understand how AI and system learning is helping vendor bill data capture in the industry today. But we have the expertise in that. We walk alongside your team. We plan and execute projects in a fashion that fosters collaboration and learning. One of the things that we like to talk about is having a good bedside manner, right? And a good bedside manner is typically recognizing that being an ERP implementation consultant, is sort of 1/3 bartender, 1/3 therapist, and 1/3 technologist, right? We need to be there. We need to be able to listen and comprehend deeply what the issues are. And we need to be able to provide back to you innovative solutions to handle your business's problems. One of the things that we're very proud about, and I know that Sensiba is the same, is that when we do implementations or we do software package selections, it's usually the beginning of a longer term, mutually beneficial relationship. We have existing long-term support agreements tailor-made to our clients after we've taken them live. And we have an equal amount of clients that have decided that with the amount of education, training, and effort that we poured into making them self-sufficient, they're able to soar on their own. So we really look forward to working with clients. We love the diversity of our client base, both Sensiba and Opal Creek. And you know what's critical is that an ERP implementation is a temporary thing, right? It's something that's done in addition to your day job, right? And we understand that executives that are trying to make decisions about new ERP systems, employees that are supporting an implementation project, at the end of the day, they have to continue to pay the bills. They have to continue to recognize the revenue. They have to continue to invoice customers. And at the end of the night, they need to go home to their families. So we kind of really pride ourselves on having the more humanistic and softer side of the consulting business. And as we said originally, you're making an investment, right? And it's not small, right? For you to replace your accounting system, your finance system, the thing that is the basis within which you record your transactions, it's typically not, a small immaterial amount. So our focus on risk management is tailor-made towards making sure that there is less risk that a project will fail. We're really, really focused on getting behind and supporting our clients and being successful.
Well said. Yeah. I think I don't know if I have anything to add to that, which is probably just as well because we have like just a couple minutes left, and we have Q&A here. We have at least one question has come in so far. It is, does Sage Intacct integrate with Salesforce nonprofit cloud? And it does. There's actually a separate Sage product specifically for integration with Sage Intacct and Salesforce nonprofit cloud. And so that's a yes. Sage Intacct also just recently announced a collaborative product with Donor Perfect. So we have both of those options for donor management.
While the question was not specific towards NetSuite, I will say that a NetSuite to Salesforce integration is a very well-worn path. And it would be one that we would address using the Celigo iPaaS solution. One of my partners, Brian, who's spent an extensive amount of time within both the NetSuite and Salesforce organizations, likens the pre-built templates that the Celigo solutions come with to essentially getting you to the third or fourth rung of the ladder out of the box. So iPaaS solutions like Celigo will give you a starter template. Tom talked about those before, and it really sort of helps expedite a tailor-made integration. Obviously, everything needs to be designed, tested, and built, but they're very strong enablers in the market space. Tom,
Yeah,
is there an iPaaS solution or an integration architecture that you guys are supportive of, that you guys like to work with?
well, we are partners with Data Blend, which is it enables things like Blackline and Sage Intacct connections, but it as you said, it comes with the capability to start with a template and then expand that to anything. We also work with, there are numerous iPaaS solutions now in the marketplace. So we work with Workato is another one that is used for a lot for Salesforce integration. But there's also a wide range of price differences between those iPaaS solutions. So that's something we could follow up on when somebody wants to talk to us. But we are out of time for today. This has been really fun. I love just talking about the contrasting information with Adam, and I always learn something new about NetSuite. So that's great.
And the same for me. We love talking about technology. We believe that we've got some legs here with regard to a recurring webinar series that we'll use to share more in-depth information about each platform. I've had great fun, and I just wanted to thank the participants for being here. And please feel free to reach out if there's anything that I can do or Tom can do for you in our respective spaces. Thank you.
Yep, great. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks.